This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. This is not my closet full of all the stuff that I love. We're shooting al fresco today. And you know what? This is an episode I really kind of dreaded doing because there's just so much that I have to say about Jerry Lewis's work. Not his personal life or the stories about him, but just his films. And I could talk about a lot of different things too. I could talk about, for example, all these films of his and what I think about them. Or I could talk about his book, The Total Filmmaker, that I'm reading right now. I could talk about this box set of The Nutty Professor, his best film, I think. I could also talk about the time when I saw him live, which I think was in 2017, near the end of his career. But I'm trying to keep these episodes short, so I'm just going to focus on a new box set of two of his films. And if I get a good response to this video, a decent number of views, then I'll do a longer one about Jerry Lewis. Or you know what, I might just do one anyways, no matter what happens. But for now, we're going to talk about the new box set. Let's check it out. So the new box set is called Jerry Lewis at Columbia. This is on the imprint label. There's the front and there's the back. And there are two films in this one. The first one is The Big Mouth. This is from 1967. It's 107 minutes in color. Jerry directed and co-wrote this one. And the plot, well, does it really matter? It's a Jerry Lewis film. But basically, he's a fisherman. He's on the beach in San Diego, and he's fishing, and he pulls up this scuba diver who happens to be a gangster. And his last dying breath, he tells Jerry where the gold is hidden. So pretty soon, all these other gangsters are trying to find Jerry because they think he knows where the gold is. There's more to it than that. That's the basic idea. And this one, all the Jerryisms show up. The mugging, the weird voices, different disguises, the pratfalls. He plays a couple of different characters, and mostly he plays the Julius Kelp character, which was really imported from The Nutty Professor. And then he plays, unfortunately, a kabuki actor in another scene or two. And I say unfortunately because he's putting on a Japanese accent, and the other guys on stage who are also kabuki actors are not Japanese, and they're made up to look Japanese, so it's a little cringy, a little out of date there. But he's doing a lot of funny stuff in here, and I was thinking as I was watching it, this is probably about as old as he should be when he stops doing this kind of stuff, because after this it's just going to look a little bit sad, but he can still pull it off in this one. I also thought, who else is doing this kind of comedy nowadays? Jim Carrey's the only one I can think of who's doing the faces and the different characters and the different voices and things. There's also a couple of secret weapons in here. You have some character actors. You have Buddy Lester playing one of the gangsters. If you remember The Nutty Professor, he was the bartender in the scene with Buddy Love, where Buddy Love gives the bartender a hard time asking him to make a drink for him. It's a very funny scene. That's Buddy Lester, the bartender. The other secret weapon is the comedian Charlie Callis, and if you're a boomer like me, you might remember him on Johnny Carson, other talk shows. And he goes way overboard with his mugging, his voices, and his sound effects. It's almost like Jerry on crack or something. And I think there's just nothing funnier than to see a guy acting crazy, really crazy, in front of a bunch of people who are not reacting to him and just looking stone-faced. You know, Groucho Marx did that, the Marx Brothers did that, other comedians did that. I just think that's really funny to see that, to just let him go and no music, just let him go crazy and everybody just stares at him. A few times Jerry does break the fourth wall and stare right at the camera at us, like asking us, do you believe what's happening here? And there's also a narrator that frames the film, and it starts with him directly addressing us in the camera, and comes back periodically to comment on the action. It's really not needed, but I guess it's kind of funny. The problems with this one, well, there are a few sight gags that don't work that well, or just like okay. There's a couple of chase scenes at the end that go on way too long and are really not that funny. And then the love interest with Jerry is just really kind of lame, and the woman's kind of dingy. And believe it or not, and this is not really any kind of spoiler alert, Jerry and the girl walk off into the sunset at the end. So, but still, I like this one because he's funny in it. So I'm going to give it 3.5 fish out of 5. And what's on this disc? There's not a whole lot. There is a commentary, which I didn't listen to. There's a trailer and some photos and some TV spots. And there is also a Super 8 version of this film. I don't know why they do that, but it's like 20 minutes long. And it's just a really bad quality Super 8 version. Otherwise, this looks fine and it sounds fine. Let's look at the other film in this box set. The second film in this box set is called Hook, Line, and Sinker. It's from 1969, 90 minutes long, in color. Jerry didn't direct this one. George Marshall directed it, and I think that could be one of the problems. Also the fact that Jerry did not write this one. This one has more of a high concept plot. It has a flashback structure where Jerry's in this operating table and all these doctors are surrounding him and he's telling about what happened to him. And what happened is his friend, played by Peter Lawford, who's a doctor, says that Jerry's dying of this terrible heart abnormality. And so then Jerry's wife says, you know what, you love fishing, why don't you just go on the greatest fishing trip you can imagine and just use all your credit cards, you're going to die anyways. And so anyways, other things happen, but that's the basic idea. The problem with this one is Jerry doesn't do any characters. There's only a few scenes where he really stretches out and does some physical comedy and some really good shtick. The beginning of the first 20 minutes or so is kind of funny, but it's pretty gentle humor. It's not the great stuff that we see in a lot of other Jerry Lewis films. And then there's some long scenes and some long montages that are just not funny at all. They just go on and on forever. I mean, this one's longer than the other one, and this one's shorter than the other one, but it seems a lot longer. And also there are no funny supporting characters that he can bounce off of or that can carry some of the other scenes. So the interesting thing is on this disc there's actually an extra that I think was more interesting than the film, and that is a Dick Cavett show from 1972. And in that, it's the entire episode of the Dick Cavett show. Jerry was the only guest, so it's about an hour long. And that's very interesting because you see Jerry in all his weirdness. He's a serious Jerry, he's pompous Jerry, he's silly and goofy Jerry. And it's just kind of interesting to watch that. A couple of parts are a little cringy when he makes a couple of female remarks and also when he does a Japanese accent again like he did in the other film I mentioned. So those are there too, but this is a time capsule of that period, you know, no excuses, but that's what it is. So what's on this disc? Yeah, we have that Dick Cavett episode and then a couple of other typical extras, trailers. There's the audio commentary and, you know, the usual stuff. But for this one, because it was just not that funny and did show off what he can really do, 2 fish out of 5. So what's missing from this box set? Well, a few things. I mean, you just get the 2 films basically. There's no booklet. I would like to know why he went to Columbia, because the other films that I showed before that I have, those are made at Paramount. And those are far superior. I mean, there's nothing in this box set, these 2 films, that can compare to, you know, The Nutty Professor, of course, but even The Errand Boy, The Bellboy, Ladies' Man, Family Jewels, The Patsy. All those are much better than the 2 in here. But if you're a fan, you still might want to have them, and that's what I did. I still wanted to have them, and I still wanted to check it out. But I would like to see a booklet explaining how he got to Columbia and you know, what the whole story was behind that, and if he was happy there, and the story behind the films I think would be really good too. So that's it. We have Jerry Lewis box set for you Jerry Lewis fans. You know, if you like this one, you know, let me know and I'll do a longer one about the other films. And I'll show you the box set for Nutty Professor too, which is kind of interesting. So leave a comment or a suggestion down here. Leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. Not quite at 200 subscribers yet. Getting close. I'd like to be there by June. Share this with your friends and neighbors. Otherwise, thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.